Alright, in this particular video we are going to be looking at the Illustrator tools and operations for transform and manipulation tools. So for this particular video we'll be looking at a few of your different tools in your toolbar related to how to reshape and reform objects on screen, as well as methods for fine-tune manipulation to them. So let's get started. Alright. So on the left side of the screen, let's look at our toolbar we have over here. And we have a grouping of icons listed in here that are all related to transformations. Now the first tool usually in the list is the rotate tool, you may notice over here. And then we go all the way down, we have other things that we can also manipulate with, all the way down to a perspective grid tool. Now I won't be looking at all of these, we'll just look at a handful so that you can get started. Of course, you're always welcome to check out the tools and play around with them and experiment with them in your own time. But I want to give you just the basics so you have something to start with. So the first couple tools up we're going to explore, we're going to work with over here just to kind of explore over on our sidebar. So first off, to use any of the tools you must have an object active in your scene. So I'm going to go to my black arrow tool to make a basic selection. So I'm going to select this circle and just move it around to make sure I've got it active. And now that I have it selected on screen, here are some things we should know right away about working with transformation tools on the fly. Automatically, when you use the black arrow selection, you can actually pop up the basic transform square or pop-up box that shows around your object. So you should see around this object there are 4 corners, white control corners, as well as in between white control corners. And you can move your mouse on any one of these directly to change the shaping of the object. So if I go to a corner, I can scale the top and the side at the same time to scale it. If I hold down Shift while I do that, it will scale by ratio, so it will lock the ratio together to keep the shape even. If I hold down Alt, it will shrink and grow the shape towards the center point of the object, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of handy when you want to position an object on screen, but you don't want to have to be resizing it from a corner like this. And you've got the center perfectly positioned. So that can be convenient and helpful for doing that particular activity. You can also hold down Shift and Alt at the same time and click and drag from a corner, and it will shrink and grow the object with a locked ratio towards its center. So this is also another convenience if you don't want to have to be sliding the object all over screen trying to get it positioned where you want it. Okay, so that's the basic transform box. You can also move your mouse just past one of the corners and it should change into a rotated double arrow like this. And then you can click and drag to do basic rotation. Again, you can hold down Shift while you do that to lock it into 90-degree increments. Alright, now those are just a few things you can get access to instantly just from the black selection tool. Great tool to work with on the fly if you're trying to do quick transformations. Another great tool for working with, we'll look at the toolbar for this, is your basic rotate and scaling tool over here. These are exceptional because you don't have to click on the object to make it rotate. As long as it's active, I can click the rotate option and then click anywhere outside here and drag, and it will rotate my object accordingly. See how that works? And it's all being rotated about this little anchor, this little light blue anchor in the center of my object, which I can click and drag on to change. And then if I rotate it now, it will rotate about that point. And see, I'm not even clicking on the object to make it rotate as long as I have rotate turned on. And anytime I want that little cursor back to the center, I just click and drag it and drop it, and it should lock it back onto the center point of your object. And then you can continue to rotate from the outside edges. There are, of course, many tools locked under any of these transform tools. You're welcome to check them out. The basic transform for scale is the next box down. It's 2 boxes with an arrow. And this works the same as rotate. You don't have to click on the object, you just click on the outside and drag. Notice that it is a free-form drag scale, so it does not lock ratios automatically for you. If you want it to do that, you still have to hold down Shift as you drag, and you must drag away at a diagonal angle. Otherwise, if you drag straight up and down, it will still try to skew the shape on an up and down angle or a side to side. But a perfect diagonal pull will allow the object to change shape evenly. A few other options here I'd like to show you. One of them includes the basic free transform tool. So let me turn this on. Notice that when you turn on free transform, it will show your object with the bounding box around it, right, like we saw earlier. And the interesting thing about it is, besides the fact that it can do a basic transformation of the object, it can also do some other advanced transformations. Notice that when I move the mouse over the corner, that it shows this funny little quadruple-sided arrow object. That's just to indicate that you can rotate multiple ways with it active like that. And you still have the access to the Shift key if you want to lock the ratio together. But that's just so you know that that's there. You can also, if you notice when you move to one of the in-betweens, that you can skew its shape to the sides like this to sort of distort the form. That is unique to the transform tool. So see, you can also do it from these sides if you want to skew its form. Great for creating, sometimes creating sort of mock perspective angle. There are other tools it has whenever you use this. It has a pop-up sort of floating tool for you to use whenever you use the transform tool. So there are 4 options here. The first is this button right here for the chain link. So that's constrained. So when you have that on, you can change and grab the corners anytime, and it will maintain a scaled ratio as you pull the object from one of its corner points. Then you have basic transform, which is the rectangle with the hand, or free transform. The next one is perspective distort. This one's kind of fun. Whenever you grab a corner, you will actually enact a perspective-based distortion on your object. So notice as I pull it and let go that it enacts a transformation that's more unique to perspective distortion. So if you're trying to create like a 3-dimensional box or something that distorts into space or into what looks like distance on the screen, this might be a good tool for that. The last box is your free distortion tool, and this one can be particularly fun when you're just trying to create kind of a unique sort of transformational type shape that you want to freeform distort on screen. And so you can do that very easily with this particular tool for free distort turned on. Now that's the basic run of the transform tool. A couple other tools I'd like to introduce you to, again, that you may find use for while you're working inside of Illustrator on your own project. Another one that's listed in here in this section of objects is the build tool or shape builder. This is an excellent tool. The shape builder is this 2 circles with a little white arrow on it. What it basically allows you to do is build new shape forms out of pieces or other overlapping shapes. So for example, I'm going to drop just a few different forms on screen here, and I'm going to let them overlap a little bit. I might even have shapes that have concentric circles. And maybe just one or two more little shapes here to kind of add into the fold of the design. Alright, so now I've got a bunch of little simple overlapping shapes. And I'm going to go ahead and select all those, just drawing, clicking and dragging out a box around all of them. Oh, and let's get rid of these little pathways here. Remember, you can select and click on something and delete it anytime you don't need it. Alright, so I have all my shapes selected. I'm going to go to Shape Builder, this little circle thing. And now that it's on, remember, you must have multiple overlapping objects selected for this tool to work. It will not work any other way. But watch what it does. So I'm going to just kind of glide my mouse over my object that's selected, and notice it shows shaded in areas as I pass over them. So what it's trying to tell you is that you can actually cut these pieces away from each other just by clicking on them. Other things that you can do is you can actually connect shapes together. So let's try connecting some together. So I'm going to start in this box, and I'm going to click and drag my mouse. Notice as I drag, it draws a little faint line, and as I pass through the borders of into other shapes, suddenly a red outline goes all the way around both of those shapes that are now selected. So that's going to tell me when I let go that those two shapes are now made into one brand new form. Pretty cool. So let's keep doing that. Let's go ahead and drag through these, and I might even cut the center of this one out. Same with that one, and that one. Now, we're going to leave the shape builder by clicking on our regular selection tool. All right, so what we've done is we've technically broken this object down into multiple pieces. Why is that good? Why is that helpful? Well, what that does is that allows you to apply, if you want to, making it into one form, you can now apply a single fill color or a single stroke around all of those pieces now. When they were just overlapping, that's impossible to do. But this makes it very convenient and very easy to make simple icons and those types of things. So now I can change my stroke line effect if I want to. I'm going to turn off the dash line. See, now they're all solid. I can also change the fill effect. See that? And even these little shapes, I can drag them away and notice that they are now separate pieces away from the original object. And so now I can have a whole new shape completely designed from scratch with just using a few combination pieces put together. So a very unique, very fun tool to work with. Highly recommended. All right, we're just going to get rid of some of those little things there for a minute. All right, last thing I want to show you is going to be the blend tool. So if you look down on your list here, there's actually a little small group of tools listed right below the transform tools, and there's one called blend tool. Blend tool is also a tool that works with multiple selected objects on screen, or multiple objects. So I'm going to work with this with just a pathway line. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and I'm going to make just a simple line on screen. And I'm going to make this line very straight edge, not going to drag any special lines around for it. Give it a little shape variety. Now when you're done drawing with it, you don't want to seal a shape, just hit escape, and that will discontinue that pen path you started. Okay, got one there. Let's draw one more, and we're going to put it on the opposite side. So I'm going to go back to my pen tool, and I'm going to draw some smoother lines over here. So designate my first point, and then click and drag to make my second, and my third, and then I'm going to also click and drag to make this one, and that one, and that one, and maybe one more right there. And now I'm going to hit escape. All right. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to also change the coloring for both of these. So I'm going to make one of them a different color scheme. So I'll take this one over here, and I'm going to give it a no fill, but I'm going to change its stroke color to a yellow. All right. And for this shape over here, I'm going to also take away its fill. So I'm going to go up here to the box for fill and turn off its fill. All right, and then we're going to change its stroke color to something a little more interesting and not so dull. So let's make it a blue. That's a nice complementary color to yellow. All right, now we're going to go to our blend tool. And now that again, it works as long as you have one object selected. Start with the first object, and what you're going to do is define it as the first object by moving this little box cursor over the line. I'm going to click once, and then go to my neighboring object that I want it to blend into and overlap it. Notice it shows as a plus sign when I cross the path. So when I see the plus, that means I can click. And when I click, it makes a smooth blend between the two shapes. Now what it's actually doing is it's drawing an appearance of lots and lots and lots of these lines, slowly transforming from one shape into the other to blend from the smooth shape of points into these very mechanical shape points. Now we can change the effect of this very quickly. It doesn't have to be a smooth line, it can actually be graded to where it's multiple lines that we see. So if we want to change it, let's go back to the blend tool and double click on it. Blend options pop up, and let's turn on the little preview box right here. And right now its default setting is smooth color. So that's why we get this transition from blue to yellow real nicely with a mid-tone green in between it. So let's change smooth color out. And let's change it to specified steps. So let's switch it down to a much lower number. Let's say 50. Okay? So that will give us 50 transformation line shapes in between. Okay? So let's say okay. Wow, look at that. See the difference? So what we've done now is that we've actually shown it, you can actually transform the shapes in from one to the other. Now it gets more interesting. I can actually double click on one of these because now they're joined together as one object. You have to double click to get to one of them instead of the other. I can't click on the in-between lines, by the way. They are considered what are called appearance attributes, so you would have to do some work on the object in order to edit those individual pieces. But usually when people design with this, they're not doing that. They're going with the effect in some way. So this works great on things like text, objects, making abstract shapes and forms. But with one side selected like this, I can manipulate this one side and the transformation follows the change. So I can turn it all the way around and it recognizes the three-dimensional or 360 change. And so the line will try to follow. I can also shrink this side and it will shrink and try to follow it. So it almost has a three-dimensional appearance to it too. That's a unique feature of this tool when working between two different shapes on screen, is that it gives the illusion of 3 dimensions. Alright, when we're done inside this mode where we've double-clicked, we can just double-click away out into the empty area where there's nothing and come out and see our object. Now that is the collection of transformation tools that you can work with inside of Illustrator. Of course, there are many more, but I did want to get you started on just a few. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Next time we get together, we will look at how to trace images inside of Illustrator. All right, take care.